Hi people, it's Archivist here, and today I'm going to be doing my Game of the Year for 2017. So before we get to the Game of the Year, 3 quick honourable mentions that I thought were fantastic but not quite Game of the Year. So Horizon Zero Dawn, a really fantastic setting, I think, above all else. Injustice 2 had a great story for a fighter, and I thought that Zelda Breath of the Wild had some of the most inventive puzzle design I've ever seen in the game, some absolutely fantastic physics-based logic. But for me, the Game of the Year, and this is somewhat cliche, but it seems like more people choose Zelda, but for me, Super Mario Odyssey was my Game of the Year, and this came down to 2 primary factors. The unique appeal, in that it's something not like anything I've played since Mario Sunshine, and also the fact that it was just such a strong injection of fun. It's not where I've spent the most time this year, it's not got loads of lasting appeal to me, but the inventiveness and the creativity and the graphics, although not technically cutting edge, are visually sublime. It's nice to be able to just go to these various worlds. Although they aren't humongous, they are bursting with lots of little details, and they feel very handcrafted as opposed to procedurally generated. Something in a game like Horizon Zero Dawn, as beautiful as it does look, does get the sense that there is a lot of foliage and clutter making up its overall intricacies, whereas with Mario Odyssey, pretty much everything you see in the game has been put there deliberately for service of hiding one of the moons in the game, because that is essentially what the game is trying to do here. You are just collecting moons, but the motivation of collecting them is what gets you to see the game in so many different various perspectives. It can do very creative things with this. It can send you to locations you may not otherwise have gone to. It can force you to think in ways that aren't particularly conventional, and as a result can seem very inventive, but it rarely strays into cryptic territory where the moons are, you'd have to look online to see exactly how to get them. I think I've surpassed 500 moons by this point, and I've beaten the real ending, although I won't say what it is, which was very challenging, by the way. And I haven't really come back to it, I will say that. It's not a game that I have revisited since it came out, but when I did play it on launch day and the weekend following that, it was so much fun. And I will admit there's a little bit of nostalgia working here. I really liked the Nintendo GameCube when I was younger, and one of my favourite games for that was Super Mario Sunshine, and this reminds me of that, not entirely, but it's certainly got some of the same DNA in here. The idea that you're going into these worlds that are very abstract, but they feel in a very weird way very believable. In this game it's mostly because of the inhabitants and the contextual things like the currencies that are unique to each world. Maybe if I was to criticise the game, I'd say it was a bit too easy up until the final level, but I think this is a game that is built to be enjoyed by everyone, and the thing about games that do that is it tends to be lowest common denominator, in that in an attempt to please everyone it pleases no one. But what Nintendo have managed to do here is try to please everyone and seemingly succeed. This game may not be for you, but for everyone who has tried it, it does seem to be a smash hit, and I can absolutely see why. In fact, it was quite refreshing to have a game that just no one seemed to dislike, that everyone enjoyed, and it's nice to see a game on such a new system, the Nintendo Switch, doing so well. And I have no doubt that it will act as a system seller for the Switch. And Nintendo have done a fantastic job here. They do have this special sauce when creating their own first-party titles, and Mario Odyssey is an absolute gem of showing this off. Even little things like the way Mario controls, the way he feels, the way he animates, and the cute little things like that that really add to the overall look and appeal of the game. The only real problem, and this is something I kind of pick up on as I speak here, is that it's an almost intangible form of enjoyment. I have a very hard time truly describing what I liked so much about the game. I enjoyed visiting the different kingdoms, I enjoyed solving the various puzzles and collecting the moons and defeating Bowser, but it's hard to extrapolate much from that. We've got so many games with all these deep, intricate progression systems or these very in-depth stories that I could therefore talk about for many hours to come. But with Mario Odyssey, it's a very simplistic form of enjoyment. and that's something that I can't say I've experienced in a very long time. I wish I could say more about it, but it really is something that has to be experienced to be understood. If you haven't got a Nintendo Switch, I do genuinely believe it's worth getting one for Mario Odyssey. There are a few nitpicks you could pull out about it, like the fact that the motion controls don't feel very natural when you're in handheld mode. As someone who played it exclusively in docks mode, that didn't really affect me, but it's worth calling out. Also, something that I quite appreciated about the game is that it is, in many respects, a technical marvel. In the majority of kingdoms, it holds a very strong 60 frames per second while also looking very good. It's not 1080p by any means, but the cartoony look, simplistic design really helps it. The only exception I'd say to this is the Metro Kingdom, which is unfortunate because it's my favourite kingdom in the game, but it pushes the Nintendo Switch maybe a bit too far because you can see the frame rate struggling a bit, but other than that, it's a very solid performer. It's truly unique and in some ways very surprising that a game could gain as much hype as Mario Odyssey did. There was a lot of excitement prior to release, and then the game itself to in fact deliver on that hype and expectations, and I'd say actually surpass it. The critical acclaim was exceptionally high. The fan reaction was good as well, so it truly was a win-win. It worked out so well, and this is something that feels like it's something that Nintendo just have a monopoly on. And they've managed to expand outside, I think, of their fan base as well, because there are, of course, some dedicated Nintendo fans who, maybe will give more of a leeway to games from them because they are such fans of their titles. But I think this has gone beyond that, where people who typically aren't Nintendo fans are enjoying Mario Odyssey. I mean, I've said this before in another video where I really have been away from Nintendo for a very long time. It was only with the Nintendo Switch, with Zelda earlier this year, that I came back to it. Zelda sort of re-sparked my love for Nintendo, and this game has cemented it. So that was my game of the year. Maybe not too much of a shock because this game has received absolutely amazing critical acclaim. I'm not in any way being contrarian as I talk about Mario Odyssey. Let me know your game of the year if you've managed to find this video on my very small obscure channel. As always, people, thanks very much for watching and see you next time.